Humans gave aliens one warning. Your worlds will lie in ruins if you proceed. Yet the galactic overlords chose warfare over words. Now human bootprints will crush their cities to dust. As Eric James stepped off his shuttle onto the Akamarian homeworld, the sprawling alien city loomed before him, its chrome towers gleaming beneath crimson skies. Eric had seen planets burn under humanity's vengeance, yet this time the humans aimed to protect the galaxy, not conquer it. His eyes swept the landing pad, spotting Orion, the Akamarian diplomat, fidgeting nervously nearby. At the summit, Orion's tentacles shook as he revealed the Akamarian's secret superweapon, poised to shatter the armistice and ignite another galactic bloodbath. Our forces are primed to strike human colonies. Our new tech will leave your fleet in ashes, Orion clicked. Eric's heart pounded, knowing this summit was humanity's final chance for peace. If he failed here, mankind faced a second apocalyptic war before Earth had recovered from the last. Trillions would perish across hundreds of worlds if violence erupted anew. He locked eyes with Orion, knowing the survival of entire civilizations hinged on this moment. "That's a mistake," Eric replied, voice steely. "If you launch that attack, your species won't live to regret it. Give me 6 hours and I'll show you why." The summit chamber hummed with whispers as Eric James faced down the rows of yellow-robed Akamarian elders. The Prime Minister's oily voice slithered through the murmurs. "The human race has taken much from us. Our worlds, our resources, our very future," he hissed, black eyes boring into Eric's. "What say you, human?" Eric stood, brushing off his navy uniform. He tapped a glowing bracelet, and a holographic star map flickered to life above the council table. "With respect, Prime Minister, this is simply untrue. These records show—" As he spoke, movement in his periphery drew his focus. Orion was inching towards a side door, his tentacles twitching. The Akamarian slipped out of the chamber. Eric faltered, then pressed on with his defense, but the Prime Minister silenced him with a wave of a skeletal hand. "Your lies hold no sway here. The time for talk has ended," the Prime Minister said. His eyes darted to the door Orion had exited through. Eric's heart thudded against his ribs. Something was wrong. As the debate spiraled, he muttered an excuse and hurried out, slipping through the door into a deserted hallway. The spongy floor muffled his footsteps as he crept down the passage Orion had disappeared into. The hallway ended at a heavy blast door slightly ajar. Green light spilled from the room beyond. Eric shouldered through the door, blinking in the emerald glow of a towering computer bank. Orion hunched over a terminal, his tentacles a blur over the keys. "What are you doing?" Eric demanded. Orion spun, eyes wide. "Eric, thank the stars, I need your help." "Explain now." "The Prime Minister, the Council, they're all in on it. The attack, the new weapon. They'll wipe out humanity and half the galaxy with it. I've been trying to stop them, but I can't do it alone." Orion's tentacles shook. "If we don't act now, billions will die. Please, you have to trust me." Eric stared at the alien, mind racing. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Orion was telling the truth, they had to act immediately. But if this was a trick... He made his choice. "Okay, tell me the plan." Arjun sagged with relief, then turned back to the terminal. "We need evidence of the Akamarian's treachery. Proof of the weapon. I know where to find it, but I need time to hack the system. You have to get me that time." Eric nodded. "I'll stall the council. Work fast." He slipped back out into the hallway, mind churning. The future of two species hung in the balance. Failure here would doom them all. The door to the council chamber loomed ahead. Eric drew in a breath, steeling himself. One way or another, this ended now. Eric and Orion put their hastily formed plan into action, but it quickly became apparent that the conspiracy ran deeper than they initially thought. As they dug further, a chilling truth emerged. A secretive faction within the Akamarian leadership, known as the Obsidian Order, had been covertly developing the weapon for years. This cabal of scientists and military officers were zealots, fanatically committed to their cause of Akamarian dominance at any cost. With this revelation, the stakes grew even higher. Eric and Orion found themselves on the run, constantly looking over their shoulders for Obsidian Order assassins as they raced to uncover evidence of the faction's nefarious activities. Their search led them to infiltrate a heavily fortified research outpost on a distant moon. Sneaking into the facility's sterile white corridors, they stumbled upon a horrifying sight. Rows upon rows of containment units, each housing a different species in various stages of gruesome infection. It became clear that the Akamarians' weapon was a bioengineered plague, designed to selectively wipe out targeted populations while leaving the Akamarians themselves unscathed. The Obsidian Order's plan began to take shape in the humans' minds. They intended to unleash this plague on humanity and its allies, decimating entire civilizations and leaving the Akamarians as the sole galactic superpower. The weight of this realization settled heavily on Eric and Orion's shoulders. Knowing they had to act fast, they stealthily made their way to the central lab. Orion used his hacking skills to bypass the security systems, allowing them to snatch a sample of the lethal contagion. But as they turned to make their escape, an ear-splitting alarm pierced the air. They had been discovered. Heart pounding, Eric and Orion sprinted through the maze-like hallways, the thunder of pursuing footsteps growing louder behind them. They managed to make it to their hidden shuttle and blast off, but their relief was short-lived. The entire Akamarian armada had been mobilized and now the chase was on. As streaks of enemy fire flashed past their viewport, Eric gripped the plague sample tightly. They had to get this evidence to human space at all costs. The fate of the galaxy itself hung in the balance. Failure was not an option. Orion punched in coordinates, and their shuttle lurched as it leapt into hyperdrive. But both of them knew this was far from over. With the might of the Akamarian military bearing down on them and time running out, they would have to rely on all their skill and cunning to outmaneuver their pursuers. The shuttle shuddered as it tore through the fabric of hyperspace, stars streaking past the viewports in blurs of light. Eric clutched the plague sample close to his chest, his heart pounding. They had managed to escape the Akamarian armada by the skin of their teeth, but he knew their ordeal was far from over. Suddenly the ship lurched violently, alarms blaring. Orion's tentacles flew over the controls. "We're caught in some kind of tractor beam," he shouted over the din. "It's pulling us out of hyperspace." The shuttle dropped back into real space with a sickening lurch. Eric stumbled, catching himself against a bulkhead. As he regained his footing, his eyes widened at the sight that greeted him through the viewport. A colossal alien ship loomed before them, its hull a mottled green and brown, like the skin of some ancient reptile. Strange organic-looking protrusions jutted from its surface, pulsing with an eerie bioluminescence. The tractor beam emanated from a gaping maw at the ship's fore, inexorably drawing their tiny shuttle closer. "I've never seen a ship like that before," Orion whispered, his voice laced with fear. As they watched helplessly, the alien vessels swallowed their shuttle whole. They found themselves in a cavernous hangar bay, the walls pulsating with the same unsettling light. A hiss of pressurized air signaled the arrival of their captors. The beings that strode into the hangar were unlike any Eric had encountered. Tall and slender, their bodies were encased in form-fitting suits of shimmering material that seemed to shift and change color with each movement. Their heads were elongated, with large almond-shaped eyes that glowed with an inner fire. They radiated an aura of immense power and ancient wisdom. One of the aliens stepped forward, its voice echoing in Eric's mind without passing through his ears. "Welcome, humans. We are the Quilthak. We have been watching your struggle with great interest." Eric and Orion exchanged a glance, trepidation etched on their faces. They had heard whispers of the Quilthak, a reclusive species that had withdrawn from galactic affairs eons ago. Their advanced technology and psionic abilities were the stuff of legends. The Quilthak leader's eyes fixed on the plague sample in Eric's hands. "You carry a great burden," it said, "a weapon of unimaginable destruction." Eric's grip tightened on the canister. "We're trying to stop it from being used. We need to get this sample to human space, to find a way to counter it." The alien tilted its head, considering. "We may be able to assist you in that endeavor. Our people possess knowledge that could help create a cure, but such knowledge is not given lightly. Orion stepped forward, his tentacles twitching nervously. Please, we're desperate. Billions of lives are at stake. We'll do anything. The Quilthak leader's eyes narrowed. Anything? Be careful what you offer, young one. Our aid comes with a price. It gestured to a group of its fellows who began to close in around Eric and Orion. If you truly seek our help, you must first prove your worthiness. Eric's heart hammered in his chest as he realized the gravity of their situation. They were completely at the mercy of these enigmatic beings, with no way of knowing their true intentions. But what choice did they have? He met the Quilthak leader's gaze, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. What do we have to do? Eric's muscles burned as he lunged for the glowing orb, the final test in the Quilthak's grueling gauntlet. His fingers brushed its surface, but a burst of searing energy sent him reeling back. Orion, moving with unexpected speed, shoved Eric aside and seized the orb himself. The chamber filled with blinding light. When it faded, Orion lay crumpled on the floor, his tentacles twitching feebly. Eric scrambled to his friend's side, but it was too late. Orion's eyes were already glazing over. "No!" Eric choked out, cradling Orion's limp form. "Why did you do that?" Orion's voice was a faint whisper. "You have to stop them. The plague can't fall into their hands." With a final shudder, Orion went still. Eric staggered to his feet, rage and grief warring in his chest, as the Quilthak leader glided into the chamber. Its eyes gleamed with triumph. "Well done, human," it said. "You have proven your worth." "At what cost?" Eric snarled. "Orion is dead because of your twisted games." The leader waved a dismissive hand. "A necessary sacrifice. His knowledge and yours will serve a greater purpose." "What are you talking about?" The Quilthak's face split into a chilling smile. "The trials were merely a means to an end, a way to extract the information we needed from your minds. You see, human, we are a dying race. But the plague you carry, it is the key to our survival." Horror dawned on Eric as the pieces fell into place. "You're going to use it as a weapon, to wipe out your enemies." "And establish the Quilthak as the rightful rulers of the galaxy," the leader said. "With your knowledge, we will be unstoppable." Eric's hand tightened on the plague canister. "I won't let that happen." The leader's eyes narrowed. "You have no choice." Pain exploded in Eric's skull, driving him to his knees. The Quilthak's voice echoed in his mind, insistent, overwhelming. "Give us the plague, human. Surrender your knowledge." Eric gritted his teeth, fighting against the psychic intrusion. He forced himself to his feet, staggering towards the chamber's exit. The Quilthak leader hissed in frustration, its mental grip intensifying. Eric screamed as white-hot agony lanced through his brain, but he kept moving, step by tortuous step, until he reached the hangar bay where their shuttle waited. He dragged himself aboard, slamming the hatch shut just as the Quilthak's guards burst into the bay, energy weapons blazing. Eric's hands flew over the controls, and the shuttle leaped forward, smashing through the hangar doors and rocketing into space. As the Quilthak's world receded behind him, Eric slumped in his seat, exhausted and heartsick. Orion was gone, sacrificed to the alien's ruthless ambition. And now he carried not just the plague, but the terrible knowledge of the Quilthak's plans. The journey back to human space passed in a blur. Eric barely remembered landing at the central military spaceport, stumbling down the ramp to be greeted by a sea of grim faces. He thrust the plague canister into the hands of a startled medic. "The Akamarians created it," he rasped. "They were going to use it against us, and the Quilthak, they want it too, for their own ends." He relayed the rest of the story in a terse, clipped briefing to the ashen-faced admirals and politicians. He told them of Orion's sacrifice, of the Quilthak's sinister intentions, and of the ticking time bomb the alien leader had planted in his mind, a psionic suggestion that could be triggered at any moment, turning him into a puppet of the Quilthak's will. Shock and anger rippled through the room. Orders were barked, forces mobilized. Humanity was going to war to meet the threats arrayed against it head-on. But as Eric stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the fleet assemble, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The Akamarians, the Quilthak, they had played their hands well, and the true cost of survival might be higher than humanity was willing to pay. He stared out at the stars, his heart heavy with the weight of Orion's loss and the burden of the knowledge he now carried. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and he was just one man, flawed and fallible, standing against the onrushing darkness. The psionic suggestion pulsed in the back of his mind, an insidious whisper that, "You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time."